Welcome, everybody, to the Park and Recreation Commission for this Thursday, July 13th, 2013. We're holding this meeting at the Operations Service Center at 3333 Busch Road. The meeting will, for anybody attending in person, which right now we don't have anybody, you will have to fill out a speaker card. Anybody that would be visiting us or attending the meeting via Zoom, you'll need to raise your hand on the Zoom app if you wanted to speak on any agenda topic. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Berger. Present. Commissioner Brown. Commissioner and acting chair for this evening. Deckert.
Here.
Commissioner Rittmuller. Here. Commissioner Amati.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Do we have any agenda amendments? Staff?
None from staff.
Okay, go ahead and move on to our minutes from our last meeting, which was May 11, 2023. Anybody have any comments or edits? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve.
Oh, can I circle back? I forgot to call Commissioner Bookers this evening.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody have any comments or edits on the meeting, on the minutes for May 11th? Now let's take a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Move on to the meeting open to the public. Staff, I presume we probably don't have any introductions, awards, recognitions, presentations.
That's correct.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the Zoom audience that's looking to make public comment from any item not listed on the agenda? Okay. All right. We'll move on then to matters for the commission's review, action, and information. Number 4 on the agenda is receive an overview of the citywide strategic plan project. Staff.
So Alexis Jeffries, our deputy city manager, will be the one presenting this item for you.
Welcome, Alexa.
Thank you. Good evening. Let me see if I can get this presentation loaded and we will proceed. Oh, okay. So yeah, good evening, everyone. Alexa Jeffress, I'm the deputy city manager. It's a pleasure to be here tonight just to share an update and a status overview of the citywide strategic plan. I think we're good. We're having technical difficulties. Please stand by. Good. Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'm here tonight just to share an update of the citywide strategic plan. This is a 5-year strategic plan that the city is embarking on for the first time in Pleasanton's history. So we're really excited to share the progress to date and to share also what we've done so far and what the opportunities are for future engagement. So in previous years, the city council adopted a work plan, which was essentially a list of projects to be completed over a 2-year time period. Staff would return to council to provide periodic updates on the work plan progress on the projects in the work plan, just sharing information about the scope and the progress towards completion of those identified projects. Back in November of last year, in 2022, city council approved the creation of an interim process for this next upcoming year on the city council work plan, while a 5-year strategic plan was developed. So the intent of council in that direction was to transition the city from a 2-year work plan to a 5-year strategic plan to really start to do longer term, longer horizon planning, and to really start to align the city's priorities, not only with our mission, vision, and values, which I'll talk more about, but really to do some explicit analysis to tie the city's priorities and our projects and our work plan to the city's resources and budget. So back in spring, it wasn't me, it was our assistant city manager and other city management staff that came to the committees and commissions to share an update on the status of those work plan items. And at that time, they also gave you a preview of the 5-year strategic plan. So since then, we've been hard at work advancing the plan, and we're back here now just to share an update on that process, including some upcoming engagement opportunities. So you can see here just, sharing all the elements that go into a strategic plan. This is really going to, as I said, help us identify some high-level goals and strategies to help balance the community's needs and the council's policy priorities with the resources we have available. So what will the strategic plan include? You're probably pretty familiar with these elements. I know the Library and Recreation Department has a strategic plan that they developed for the period from 2019 to 2024. So this is very similar to that process, but on a larger scale, on a citywide scale. So it will include mission, vision, and values, not only envisioning Pleasanton in the future and stating sort of the values of the city and the community, but really the value and the mission of the organization and the city departments as a whole. It will also include multi-year goals and strategies. So articulating at a high level, what are, it's looking like it's going to be 5 goal areas that tie to that, tie to those values and really help us achieve that vision for the future of the city. And then finally, there will be an implementation action plan, which is going to replace that current council work plan process you might be familiar with. And then in this implementation action plan will be developed by staff. It will be how staff will lay out the tasks and the projects along with dates and timelines for implementation, and that'll be tied to goals. And it's important to note that the implementation action plan is really an internal document. It's going to guide staff's departmental work plans. And this will be how the strategies approved by council as part of that 5-year planning process are evaluated and tied to available budget and resources and timeline for implementation. As part of that process, any gaps or additional resource needs that are identified when staff are sort of turning these goals and strategies into an implementation plan will be brought back to council and addressed during the regular budget cycle. And finally, it's important to note too that there'll be regular updates throughout that 5-year period, both to report out on progress. We're going to be developing a dashboard so that the public and the city council and the committees and commissions can see our progress towards those goals. And the plan will be reevaluated and likely updated every 2 years to reflect changing circumstances. I think if there's one thing we've learned over the past few years in local government with the COVID-19 pandemic and some of the challenges we've been facing, it's that you can never really anticipate what's coming up in the next few years. So it's important that we remain flexible, and we're building that flexibility into the process. So just an overview of process. I said we've been hard at work. Outreach, community, and staff engagement was really, really critical to the success of the strategic plan. We want to ensure that it reflects as accurately as possible really the needs and the feedback of both the city organization and the community at large. So on the staff engagement side, we started in February. Our consultant team engaged in one-on-one interviews with each of our council members and the mayor to talk to them about their policy priority areas. There was engagement with the entire Pleasanton executive team. So they filled out a gap analysis questionnaire to talk about what projects their departments were working on, what they saw as critical focus areas over the next 5 years. We held a staff meeting with all the mid-managers to get their input on what's working, what isn't working within the city, and where they think we need to focus resources. And then finally, there was an online survey that went out to all city staff, and we got pretty good response on that. About half, 50% of our permanent full-time employees responded to that survey and gave us great feedback. But in addition to staff engagement, community outreach is really critical. And I think that's been one of our guiding principles as we've embarked on this citywide strategic plan process, which is we really want to be intentional about ensuring that the way that we're engaging with the community is really targeted on reaching every aspect of the Pleasanton community, including and especially, I think, some of those voices that may not be frequently, coming to council and committee meetings, coming to city meetings and making their voices heard. We know that Pleasanton's a really diverse community. We know Pleasanton's been becoming more and more diverse as the census has shown over the last few years. So we really want to make sure that we're focusing on inclusion and access and reaching different aspects of our community because, they have important perspectives that can be it's important that you factor in every perspective as you're looking at, understanding the community's needs. So we had a series of events also starting in April and May. We wrapped it up last month. We had 2 pop-up events at the farmers market. Maybe some of you saw us there. We had a booth and we asked members of the community to give us their input. We did dot voting on what their service priority areas were, where they thought the city should be spending its resources and focusing on providing more services. We had pretty good response from that. I think we engaged around 130, 120 people at each farmers market event. We held 11 focus groups. So that was really an incredible collaborative effort by city staff, and the library and recreation department was really sort of instrumental in helping us complete that process. It really took a lot of participation across the whole city workforce in order to put on these focus groups. But we really tried to make sure that we were speaking to different groups of citizens, again, with a focus on inclusion and access. So we held focus groups we held 2 bilingual focus groups in Mandarin and Spanish as well, to make sure that we were removing barriers for different members of the community to be able to participate. And then finally, on May 20th, we had an open house at the library where we designed some fun activities, and we invited members of the community in to walk through and tell us about their vision and their values and sort of what they saw as the future of Pleasanton and what we should be working on over the next 5 years. So altogether, through that, I think we reached more than 400 community members. And it was really, we gathered a lot of great input, which has also been incorporated into this plan. So through that process, we saw some themes emerging. I mentioned we're looking at about 5 goal areas. Some of the emerging themes that we've woven together into these goals, both speaking to the staff and to the community, really a clear priority around affordable housing, cost of living and affordability of housing in Pleasanton. There's sort of an interesting balance between, I think, very strong recognition of the need for more affordable housing and housing options for Pleasanton residents and for the workforce, balanced with some concerns around growth and traffic impacts. So hearing both sides of that, talking to the community. We also heard a lot about the need for the city to collaborate more with nonprofits, to look at opportunities to sort of build the capacity of local nonprofits, expand the city's capacity through these partnerships, to ensure that we're really providing equitable access to all of our community members to access all the city's programs and services. We heard a lot about public safety, a clear priority, and a lot of our community engagement came up both on the side of emergency preparedness and public safety around crime and emergency response. A lot of focus on economic development, supporting our small businesses, providing good jobs and attracting large employers, and supporting Pleasanton's downtown. The city is really proud of its downtown. We heard about that from our residents very clearly. Also, a lot of appreciation for public facilities and parks, and a desire to continue that investment and ensure both to continue investment in recreation and parks and facilities, and also to remove some barriers so we can have even greater participation and inclusion for different members of the community. We heard really clearly about communication, both inside the city and externally. We heard that city staff want, sort of clear participation and opportunities for participation and communication about the city's vision and values, and also that the community wants clear communication about sort of how the city is prioritizing its resources and its initiatives. We heard a lot about diversity and inclusion. That's a value that the community holds, and it's a value that the organization holds too. And really recognizing, as I mentioned before, just the increasing diversity of Pleasanton and ensuring that we have a government and we have programs and services that reflect the diversity of our community. We heard a lot about water quality. I'm sure you've heard a lot about that too. So it's the importance of investing in our infrastructure and ensuring that we have the systems in place to ensure that we have access to safe, quality drinking water. Transportation and planning, and then finally arts and culture too. So we heard a lot of appreciation for the city's arts and culture programs. And so since this is a Parks and Recreation Committee, just telling you sort of what the focus areas that are shaping up are. We have 2 goals, I think, that are shaping up that are, I think, really relevant to sort of the future work plan and work of this commission. One around investing in our environment. So I mentioned really this need to focus on infrastructure, facilities, and long-term planning to ensure that we have, the investments and the resources needed to ensure that we have a strong infrastructure systems. but also maintaining and investing in our parks and bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure to promote climate resilience and also increase access to these recreational opportunities for residents in Pleasanton. And then another goal that's forming is the idea of building a community where everyone belongs. So this notion of livability and community development, which is really tying together the city's planning efforts. We talked around about housing and other planning efforts, but also broadening that notion of livability to include equitable access to housing, services, recreation, and giving residents an opportunity to participate in the overall civic and cultural life of the city. So these are still in draft form, but they'll be presented to the council and to the public for comment next month. So timeline and next steps. We talked about staff and community input. We had an executive team workshop last month to sort of workshop all of these goals and strategies and present this feedback to the entire executive team. All the department directors gave us their input, and then that's being drafted now and formatted into a draft overall strategic plan that's going to be presented to the city council in a public workshop on August 24th. I think it's going to be here in this room. It'll be open to the public, and that's where the council will be discussing and reviewing these goals and strategies, as well as the mission, vision, and values. And the public's invited to participate and give their feedback and comments at that meeting. And this is all leading to adoption of the strategic plan, which is likely going to be happening in October, probably the first council meeting in October. And then that'll lead into that implementation work to be done by city staff. So you're invited to participate. Our city council strategic planning workshop will be happening on August 24th. And that's a great opportunity to come and give your comments to city council. So that's all I have for you tonight. Thank you for listening, and I can take questions if you have any.
Sure. That would include suggestions for potential language changes or suggestions on additions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'll kick it off with just comments on 8 and 10 regarding city collaboration with nonprofits. I notice we have quite a few nonprofits that provide a lot of their services here in Pleasanton, but are not based in Pleasanton. Examples being Open Our Kitchen, Culinary Angels, Spectrum. Would you also be looking to include that collaboration for nonprofits based elsewhere, but having quite a bit of their population that they serve here in Pleasanton?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. And, I'm relatively new to the city, but certainly from my experience in the Tri-Valley, one of our big strengths is our regional collaborations and our regional partnerships, especially around things like providing services. And I'm sure Director Murphy has more probably specific knowledge about this topic than I do at this point. But yeah, I think absolutely. I think the expectation is that we will be looking at regional partnerships.
And how we would do that without stepping on toes too. So
Yeah.
Regarding 10, the only thing I would really add is, as suggested, as an addition to the language, is really our complete unmet need for an all abilities park in Pleasanton. We have neighboring cities who have built some amazing all abilities park and is serving their large population, probably the disabled individuals and children. And it's something that we are kind of behind the 8 ball at this point in terms of having a park that is completely scalable and having the ability to use every part of that park in terms of what an all ability park offers. So I would say that we maybe would want to include in the language that meeting the need of residents in the disabled community, or a better way to phrase that.
Okay.
So
Okay. No, thank you for that feedback.
And we have obviously something that we've had community meetings about already and a plan, but of course it's a funding issue at this point. So it just mainly that being maybe prioritized more.
Okay. No, thank you.
Otherwise, I'll go to Commissioner Vickers. So do you have any comments or suggestions?
I have no comments right now. Thank you.
Can't hear him.
Still can't hear you.
No comments. No comments.
Okay,
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. We heard that.
Commissioner Maldi.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Burbridge.
Yeah, so I do have a comment. When I take a look at item number 1, affordable housing,
Mhm.
as we build out these high density housing in our city, what's the plan for green space?
Um,
Where are we handling the green space? I mean, we're gonna put all the housing in there, we're gonna have the parking structures, but how about the green space? Parks, small parks, places where people go can have lunch or take their dog for a walk.
Mhm.
I don't see anything addressing that in this.
Yeah, so We can, I mean, when it comes to individual housing developments, I know that there will be sort of requirements around sort of the amenities and offsite improvements, sort of on-site amenities and offsite improvements that would be part of the sort of negotiated entitlement package and conditions for that specific project. I do know that the city just recently passed objective design standards, which, I'm relatively new to the city, and I'm not sort of familiar with the details of what our planning department, our community development department requires at this point, but
Our housing element actually addresses that a little bit, density versus park space and things like that. But I think what we're looking at here, Steve, that you'll see is there's this combination of different goals, right? So you have parks here as a goal and also affordable housing. And so, when we look at projects, we're always going to be looking for that balance. When you're putting in new housing, what do we need to do to serve that community that's now there? Do they need recreational amenities? Do they need parks? Do they need schools? Right? All of that gets thought about during the process.
Okay.
And we are bound by some new state laws that make that a little more complicated. But I think what's represented here is really the communities, the staffs, and the city council's desire to balance those by making these both priorities.
Okay, good. Yeah, because that's one of the gems we have living in the city is we have beautiful parks and the maintenance and, Giacomo and Matt, do a great job making these parks pristine for all of us. So I'd hate to lose as we're planning these things, these green spaces that we need to continue to build out. Thanks. I'm done. That's it.
Commissioner Rootmiller.
I just have one question. So you have the 10 main takeaways that you got from outreach, and you mentioned the 5 goal areas. So what are those specifically? And is it just like clustering the 10 takeaways?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So like I said, we're in that sort of drafting and organizing phase right now, but I think you've essentially described the process correctly. So we have these sort of takeaways, themes that emerged from all the engagement we did. And then it's about the process we're going through is to, and that the executive team has helped us work on, is really to arrange those, to group those sort of those themes and those priority areas into these 5 overarching goals. And I think what we're seeing just at a high level, there's really a focus on fiscal sustainability. So, ensuring that we have the resources in the city to deliver on everything we want to deliver over time and to plan for the future. So that's one. There's a focus on infrastructure and public facilities and environmental sustainability. So I talked about that a little bit too, looking at water quality, looking at our water systems, our sewer systems, our stormwater systems to ensure that we have, that we're doing that long-term planning to sort of as we discussed a minute ago, to sort of make sure that we're planning for the growth of the city and to sustain the city's resources over time. There's a third around public safety and emergency preparedness. So looking at, some of the issues we've seen around wildfires and, water supply in times of drought or heat waves, along with concerns about sort of public safety and crime and making sure we have the right public safety resources. The fourth one I mentioned is around community development and livability. And I think that's where a lot of these, a lot of what we talked about here around recreation opportunities, about parks. When we talk about livability, I think it's really getting at that key that Heidi articulated so well about how do we balance all of these different priorities and needs in the city around the need for housing, the need for access to good jobs, the need for access to open space and recreation and parks and trails. How do we balance all that to create a city that's, that's really, that works for everybody and that is sustainable. So that's 4. And the 5th is internal sort of organizational effectiveness. So looking at within the city organization, how do we make sure we're leveraging technology so that we can be as efficient and as effective with our resources as we need to be, looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do we ensure that all the city staff have opportunities that they feel that they belong and that we're able to retain and hire good staff. So I shared sort of the high level draft areas. This hasn't been approved by council yet. It's going to be workshops, so they can change it all. But that's sort of how things are shaping up. And then, within each of those categories, there'll be like specific strategies and projects.
So by technology, are you referring to the dashboard that you mentioned
That'll be
or
part of
outreach
it.
over the internet type thing?
In terms of my reference to technology for like organizational effectiveness. So I think within that priority area or that goal, we're talking about just using technology citywide effectively, right? So making sure we have updated software systems. So that we're kind of using the most current technology to make sure that we can deliver services effectively. That could be around human resources, it could be around financial management, and then the dashboard will be part of that. Yeah, because I think we're updating the city's website too, and we want to make sure that we're able to report out on this progress to the public in a way that's really easy and accessible.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thanks, commissioners, for your thoughtful and comments. And Alexa, thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Well, thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa. We're going to have a quick staff change of place here, and then we'll be ready to roll.
Yeah, much more like a Giacomo. We'll move on to number 5 on our agenda, which is a review and discussion regarding the Park Maintenance Division report for October 2022 and through June of 2023. That's a pretty long period there in which a lot was accomplished. Giacomo.
All right, bear with me while I find my report here.
Staff, didn't we at one time have Giacomo and Matt provide reports to us on a 3-month basis, or has it always been 6 months?
It used to be quarterly,
Yeah.
but it's just kind of evolved into biannually. We used to bring you our recreation updates quarterly, and the commission recommended that we just bring that annually. So we're just trying to bring things when it's more relevant, or maybe there's more meat to it.
No, we've been seeing these gentlemen more often, so.
New technology we're all working with tonight. Thank you for being patient with us. And thank you to TV30 for setting everything up. This is amazing. Mike, can we test your microphone real quick while we're waiting?
Testing. I'm speaking right now. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Testing.
I can't hear you about the first 5 seconds and then you come in. So maybe pause a minute when you take yourself off of mute.
Okay.
And we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you now. Thank you
Very
very
good.
much.
Perfect. Distance delay.
All right, sorry about that. I might have a green thumb, but not an electronic thumb. So, so yes, we are covering quite a big period of time from basically October through June. So we'll kind of jump in here. I think I have around 25 slides, so we have a little bit of ground to cover. So just beginning off with the kind of the cover slide here, it kind of speaks a lot to this period of time. There's a lot of kind of destruction and rebirth of our park system over this time, just due to the storms and everything that we dealt with over this period. All right, so we'll start off with the Amador Valley Community Parks. I'm just trying to kind of go more or less in order of the agenda report. I don't cover everything in the agenda report because that would just be too daunting, but I just try to cover the highlights of the highlights. So we did have an opportunity this year to replace the irrigation controller at Amador Valley Community Park. So this was all done in-house by our staff. which required removing 3 of the old controllers and combining it into one of the new, a single unit. So it kind of just showcases some of the skills beyond landscape maintenance, concrete, demo, electrical work. And this new controller, similar to what we did at Sports Park in Val Vista, allows us to have cellular communication, which is much more reliable than radio, and also allows for kind of almost like cloud-based use of a phone as a remote control to do irrigation inspections. So the end result on the right-hand side is about as exciting as a bowl of popcorn, but for us, it's vital to what we do. Mirwood Community Park, we with the help of obviously Matt and the engineering staff, we wrapped up the pickleball and basketball court and tennis court resurfacing project. Based on some of the feedback of the players, Matt and our team helped get a contractor on board and installed some additional seating there at the pickleball courts because of the popularity of the 6 courts there. And also this kind of industrial strength pickleball paddle rack with court selector. So it's all powder coated steel, so it should stand up to the test of time. But was one of the requests of the pickleball players. Bernal Community Park, we assisted with the library and recreation department in removing the 2 old concrete Patelco signs, since they're no longer the sponsor there, and replace them with the Stanford Medicine sports complex signs. So that required basically a whole new footing, new base, and new sign itself. And the park staff did the final installation of the actual base and sign itself. There was no way to salvage or reuse the old signs from the Patelco era. So kind of piggybacking on one of the other Park and Rec Commission meetings where we discussed the infill project at Bernal Community Park, we were able to finally get that done. So on the left, you kind of see the process is one machine is sweeping the material into the synthetic turf, and the other is distributing it out there. So far the feedback from the user groups, the leagues has been positive. So let's hope that continues in that trend. We also assisted with the Bernal Community Farm. So we were able to coordinate the delivery of around 300 cubic yards of compost and get that incorporated into the existing soil to prepare the site for the UC Master Gardeners who manage that portion of the parcel. We're also able to install an irrigation connection back to the meter and backflow so that they can build off of the irrigation system once they're ready to move on with future build out or phases of their Master Gardener gardens there. Not display gardens, what would you call those? I guess educational gardens. So if you're not familiar with this location, it's on Laguna Creek Lane, kind of near Valley Avenue. Over at Kenworth Sports Park, we were able to install new fencing at the softball complex on fields 1 and 2. That goes down the first and third base lines. And then we worked on the infield lips on the adult softball complex fields to just keep those from building up and becoming a bigger issue. One thing that's actually not in the agenda report that I forgot to mention is that we also did basically the same process, but a little bit more involved at the upper field, the 2 softball fields there, where we had our on-call contractor come in and really remove a substantial amount of soil and infield mix to create a more even transition between the infield and the outfield. So if anybody's ever played on fields or seen fields with a big difference in height between the infield and the outfield, it can be obviously, affects the playability of the fields, but it can also be a safety issue with bad hops and unpredictable ground balls. Jumping over to Val Vista Community Park, I'm sure Matt might be touching on this as well. The installation of the new 5 to 12-year-old and 2 to 5-year-old playgrounds is in full swing as we speak. These are the playgrounds that are closer to the community garden or on the Payne Road side of the park. So colors are much more lively and inviting and whimsical than the previous playground, and it's I think it's shaping up really well. But that's ongoing, but coming getting close to completion. Also at Val Vista Community Park is our under drain project, which is being managed by the engineering department. And this project kind of accomplishes two things. One, it ties in the drains of the sand-based athletic fields, the 3 soccer fields, and connects it to the actual sewer system. We can't discharge recycled water into creeks or streams. It has to be treated. So because it does drain out the bottom of the drainage system of the fields, it is now going to be captured and directed basically to the center restroom, where it's going to catch the existing sewer system and continue on to DSRSD for treatment. The other thing that's part of the project is some of the corrugated metal drain pipes that go out into the canal are also badly corroded, and those are going to be repaired as well. So lots of action over at Val Vista. The photo on the right-hand side is the north side of Field 1 by the skate park, where they actually did an open trench system to tie in one of the field drains on the northeast side of the field to a pump station on the northwest side of the field. So quite a bit of turf was removed, but luckily it's outside of the normal soccer playing area. It's kind of just a fringe area of grass that is not in the real playing area, but they replaced it with a similar, actually the same sand as this fields were constructed with, and it's been seeded and the seeds are, sprouting. So should be pretty seamless once the grass grows in. Let's see here. The next one on the list here was Fawn Hills Park. So Fawn Hills doesn't get a lot of airtime in terms of parks. Many people maybe have never even been there. But there were some no-mow drainage swales, no-mow meaning grass that doesn't require mowing, scattered throughout the park that over time had deteriorated, had some rodent issues that were causing issues with the plant material that was there. So the staff went in and removed all that material, regraded the swales, and then brought in a new no-mow sod and laid that out. So a good project for us, very gratifying, instant grassification, as we call it. When you roll out the sod and it looks nice and tidy. The picture on the right is the final product just a few days ago. Oh yeah, also at Fawn Hills, we planted quite a few, actually 5 new frontier elm trees near the picnic area. So that was a request from the community for more shade in the park. So this is our way of planning for the future and providing shade for future park users. The trees there, the frontier elms, do grow fairly quickly. So hopefully without too much delay or too many years, we'll have some tangible shade there. So switching over to our medians and street trees. So one thing that we're trying to do, the common theme here is kind of upgrading old systems. So between on Valley Avenue, between Busch Road and the Arroyo Val Bridge on Valley Avenue, we have 5 irrigation controllers, and we went through and upgraded all of those irrigation controllers. One of the main reasons was because the manufacturer no longer supported these units. They were that old. So it's similar to not being able to get parts for your car or parts for your appliances. It's the same thing here. So on the left-hand side was the existing condition before our upgrades, kind of a cobbled together system over the number of years with lots of different people, making repairs and adjustments the best they could. To the right-hand side, which is, about as tidy and organized as you can be. So hopefully this will get us into the next 20 or 30 years. Again, these are going from a radio communication to a cellular-based communication, which is much more reliable. Plus now staff can use their cell phones or an iPad to activate, irrigation stations to do irrigation inspections. So it just makes our lives a lot easier. All right, going over to Clippy Preserve Golf Course. I think the last time we met, we were in the process of doing the bunker renovations there. So those have been completed. And those are bunkers on several holes. Let's see here. 4, 6, 7, and 17. So when I was out there during the winter storms, a lot of the old bunkers were holding water, were quite flooded. All the new bunkers recently renovated and previously renovated were dry. So it does make quite a big difference with the bunker system that they're using. And they also do a new grass and irrigation around the edges of it as well. So I think more bunkers are planned in a couple, not this fiscal year, but next, I believe. Lund Ranch open space. So for those that aren't familiar with Lund Ranch open space, it can be accessed from several locations. The main ones being the end of Sycamore Creek Way, Sunset Creek Lane, and through the Lund Ranch, Lund Ranch Road, which goes through the new Diamond Heights development. There's really no public amenities there now, but we are installing, or have the developer that's doing the Diamond Heights project has installed a cattle grazing infrastructure, not all of it, but most of it, the fencing and corral. Part of the environmental management of this property is to graze cattle for California tiger salamander habitat. So that is moving forward. It's a beautiful property. This was taken in obviously in the spring, striking hillside views. I mean, from as far as you can see in that picture, that's City of Pleasanton Lund Ranch property. Let's see, at 200 Old Bernal, just a few weeks ago, we helped participate in a volunteer sheet mulching project. And that was a collaboration between obviously the Parks Division, our Environmental Services Division, with some assistance from Zone 7, providing support, also drinks and snacks. We didn't have a huge turnout. I think around 10 or 12 volunteers came, but the process was to try to reduce the or model one way to convert lawn to planter. So the process is fairly straightforward. You cut your grass short, you lay out a layer of cardboard, followed by a layer of compost, followed by your mulch. And that basically helps the grass decompose and create a environment ready for planting in a few months. So this area will be replanted in the fall. But it was one way to kind of educate the public and reduce some turf, save some water, and hopefully, model what we might be doing more in the future to reduce the amount of water that we're using irrigating non-recreational turf. All right, so we're going to get in a few storm-related projects here that happened beginning in from December 31st through really March 14th was our busy period during that storm season. So Wayside Park, we lost the old big black walnut tree near the bridge there. So as you can see, we had to get a contractor in with a crane in order to remove it safely from the waterway. Eventually removed the stump and did the the bank repairs. Actually, just before the tree at Wayside fell, this tree uprooted on Independence Drive. Again, our contractor removed that within hours of it failing. Alviso Adobe got hit, harder than most areas. This was largely due to a runoff and debris, mud, essentially coming from the hillside above Old Foothill Road. So the picture on the left is that outlook platform right by the bridge. It was covered in at least a foot of mud that washed down through the park and kind of settled there. The middle picture is a pathway by the orchard that was just completely washed away. The right-hand side there is our temporary repair work, so people can continue to use the pathways while we move towards a more permanent repair. Pawnee Park had a large tree uproot as well that fell into the Smoke Tree Commons. Also took out the sound, like the kind of a sound wall retaining, masonry wall between the park and the complex. So again, had to bring in a crane from our contractor to get that tree safely off the building. Luckily, no one was hurt, and the damage to the property wasn't too extensive. We did quite a bit of damage into the park, just getting the crane and other trucks in and out during the wet conditions. This project removal began the day after the incident. Orloff Park, we had a big eucalyptus tree fall and take out one of the basketball hoops and do quite a bit of damage to the court. Picture on the right is just the repairs in progress. So it made big divots into the court, was not safe to play, and obviously we had to replace the backboard pole, rim, and backboard. Ken Mercer Sports Park got hit pretty hard in the March storm. I mean, it got hit hard all the storms, but particularly in March. So staff had to clean it up several times. So the picture on the right is one of our staff members standing next to one of the uprooted root balls. So although these situations are not really comical, it's always just amazing how big things are when you stand next to them. You don't really realize how big these trees are. Water conservation. So I know this is probably really hard to read, but I can kind of give you an update. We're continuing to try to conserve water and hit our 15% reductions versus our 2020 numbers. So far this year, we're trending at a little over 42%. Granted, we've had a lot of rain, so in the first months of the year, we didn't irrigate at all. It was great. It's probably the way it should be. For all of 2022, we were just over 22%. And since June of 2021, which is really when we started tracking this data, we're trending at 25.4%. So we're definitely meeting our mark in terms of our conservation goals. All right, so we also got some grant money from TVA-QCA, which if you're not familiar with this organization, it's the Tri-Valley Air Quality Community Alliance. So they have a program, or had a program, where they would give grant money to either municipal agencies or private landscape companies to buy battery operated equipment. So we were able to secure that grant and put that money towards the purchase of several pieces of battery operated equipment that we're going to use on a pilot program to see how these machines work on a kind of an industrial scale, commercial scale. So we basically got 20 pieces of equipment. The $7,500 went towards, I think, a $22,000 purchase of 20 pieces of equipment, which included line trimmers, chainsaws, hedge trimmers, pole pruners, a couple backpack blowers, where really the backpack part of it is really the battery pack, 24 batteries and 6 charging stations. So we're going to have a kind of an orientation with the manufacturer next week. And then after that, put those pieces of machinery into service. The picture on the right just compares the battery unit on the right to the traditional gas unit on the left. According to the manufacturer, each battery should last about as long as a tank of gas. So we're hopeful that, you know, we can make this transition. There's probably some infrastructure that we need to figure out in our actual shop in terms of how we're going to charge all these things. How many batteries do we actually need if we were to actually do a full replacement of our gas powered equipment? For those that don't know, starting in January 2024, the state of California is no longer going to allow the sale of small off-road gas engines. So that means all small like mowers, you know, blowers, weed eaters or line trimmers, small, you know, utility carts, things like that will no longer be available for sale. However, you can still use the equipment that you have. So we're trying to get on board with that trend. And that's the end of the presentation. I always like to end these things with kind of some interesting pictures. So this is just, to me, speaks to how important the urban forest is and how important it is that we continue to invest in it. Picture on the left is one street in Pleasanton, and the picture on the right is a different street. But without, you know, continuing work, investment, and planning, you know, the street on the right will look like the street on the left. So with that, I'll take any comments or questions.
Commissioner Maldi, any questions or comments to Giacomo?
Yes. Thanks for the presentation. Any update on the electric work at Ken Mercer's Park?
I'm sorry.
Electric work that is going on.
Oh, at Ken Mercer Sports Park. Gosh, I think it's still April.
I have a quick update.
You do? Okay.
So we met with the team on about a week ago, and PG&E is out there. We have the new electrical box on order. And if everything goes exactly as planned, which, you know, is a rare occasion in this world, the power will be fully restored by the end of February of 24. Our goal is March of 24, so that would be ideal. But yeah, it's looking like everything's moving right along. But we can't guarantee that date. So.
Okay, thank you. That's all from my side.
You mentioned about there was detected corrosion. Is there a lot of detected corrosion throughout the city or just at that specific park?
You know, I don't have a real answer for that. I know within this park, you know, the recycled water may have played a role in the corrosion of those corrugated metal pipes, but I'm not sure if that's the material that's being used throughout the whole city. I would venture to say that most of the drainage system for stormwater is you know, a concrete type pipe that probably has a longer lifespan. Yeah. So yeah, they're going to actually, I believe they're going to line the pipe. So they use a system where they actually kind of inject a liner inside of it, so they don't have to do as much digging and excavating. But that's a good question. Yep.
Commissioner Burbridge?
I don't have any questions. I just have a comment. So we're really busy with the storm stuff. So thanks a lot for taking care of that for us.
Oh, you're welcome.
I know
Yeah,
I live across from the tennis park, and I saw this huge tree that was down and it was going in a couple of days. So
the tennis park has been hit pretty hard the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's in some kind of a wind tunnel, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so thanks again.
No problem. We're happy to do it.
Commissioner Vickers?
Yes, can you guys hear me there?
Can't see him.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so it's the delay, it's the mountain delay. Giacomo, great job as usual, great report. And just interested on the point of the grant that we received on the Air Quality Alliance. If it looks like it's a go as far as, you know, with Still or some other manufacturer with battery operated equipment, do you guys have a plan for what to do with the existing gas powered equipment?
I haven't thought of that yet. Typically we remove the fuel and the plastic as best we can and recycle the rest or keep them for parts. But it's going to be a phased in approach. So I don't think we're going to have a big, batch of machinery to dispose of. But that could happen. Some of the units are quite expensive, so it's something we really have to plan for on a large scale to purchase the material. And then obviously, like I mentioned, the upgrades to the facilities to accommodate all the charging that would have to be done.
Right. So, so is the vision to have, as far as infrastructure, to have throughout the city, to have charging units that are locked up? And then, because going back to central, is really doesn't sound like a good plan, as far as time and so forth. So is that part of the vision then?
It hasn't been yet. I mean, we were, the model that we were more thinking of is we would load up enough batteries to get us to lunch maybe, and
Okay.
then swap them out and go back out. That's why we're kind of, easing into this with a pilot program just to see, how many batteries are really going to need and what does that look like and what happens when it's raining, or do the batteries lose their charging capacity over time?
Yeah.
Those-
Cold weather, maybe.
I think there's some private companies that maybe are a little bit ahead of the curve, or other cities that are adopted these technologies before us. But it's definitely going to be a transition, and change is hard sometimes. A lot of what our staff has been used their whole careers has been gas powered equipment. So
Right.
Just like electric cars, it's something that's got some room for improvement, but is overall moving really in the right direction.
And last on that point, I'm sure that the cost will be, a big lift to transition if we go to that point, and phased in over time makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the backpack blowers, if I had to venture to guess, are 5 to 6 times more expensive than a traditional gas unit.
Got it. Otherwise, Giacomo, great report. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Of our 40 plus parks, I think Bond Hills is the only one I haven't been to. Where is it?
It's on, now I know how to get there. So you go past the dog park,
Oh,
Cubbies,
West Side?
West Laguna Creek Lane, right? Yeah.
Oh, it's on
Laguna
Laguna.
Creek Lane.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't want to, I never go down Laguna. Okay.
yeah.
The past 6 months, as far as vandalism, uptick, downtick from the prior 6 months?
I haven't seen any big uptick. I think the one thing that we have seen, or I've noticed, is these electric motorcycles. Some of the people in the city have those units, and they've, made some damage that way, going around planter areas, going through McKinley,
I've seen that.
going through Conjure.
Amber Valley Park as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I've seen them down on the Centennial Trail. I think that's a trend that hopefully does not continue, but that's in terms of vandalism, that's the kind of the uptick I've seen. I have not seen a big change in graffiti or illegal dumping or anything of that nature,
Good,
which is good. Yeah.
good. Last comment, well, actually question, as far as the Tri-Valley Air Quality Community, just to add on, is the 7,500 grant, that was the maximum that we could apply for?
Yeah, so they had every grant was the same amount, so they would just
Okay.
parcel out these $7,500 grants, individual grants. So yeah, there wasn't an option to apply for more, or wasn't based on the size or the number of pieces of equipment or anything else. It was just that was the limit of it.
And it's something we can request, go after every year?
I don't know if the program is continuing. I'll definitely, now that we've made this connection with Tri-Valley Air Quality, we can continue to see what they have available. There might be other possibilities through the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, or maybe the state of California. It doesn't just affect municipalities. This is going to affect all of the private landscape companies big or small, whether it's, you know, a father-son organization or a large national landscape company. They're all going to have to navigate this.
As we migrate more and more to electric, it's going to be nice to maybe have grants that will help pay for some of that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think the state of California does have some reduced price options. But something we'd probably start to look into.
Thanks, Giacomo, for your fantastic report.
No problem. Thank you.
We'll move on to the number 6 on the agenda, which is the landscape architecture project status report for same period, October 2022 to June 2023. Matt.
One more technology and staff switch.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not certain I can answer. It depends on what it is. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so question. Where in these two reports when we talk about this century house?
It's
Nowhere.
nowhere. No, it had to be agenda item.
Has to be an agenda.
Yeah.
Has to be agenda, but I can give you a quick update while Matt's getting his presentation loaded up. This project is currently on pause while we wait for a new city architect. So we are trying to recruit for a position that could help manage this project. I think you're all aware our director of engineering retired. And so the person that was leading this project is now the acting engineering director, city engineer. And so we're a little short on staff to take that project along. That'll come out of engineering, so it's different team. Also, while we're waiting, I wanted to make a plea to you all and see if you'd be up for it. You are our only commission in our department who still gets paper packets. Everyone else has gone virtual. It's a resource savings. It's a huge staff time impact to print the packets and have them ready. And I'm wondering if you would all be willing to switch to electronic packets. Here is a yes.
I already use the electronic packet, so I'm cool with that.
You don't have to answer me now. Maybe you guys could just email me offline and share your pros and cons, but it would be. We're trying to get, I know we've come and asked this question before, but just wanted to bring it back.
We just need
Over
to,
to you, Matt.
Matt, go ahead.
All right, Commission. Well, thank you very much. I'm here to report on the landscape architecture project status report. You'll see, and I apologize in advance that there's just like Giacomo and I's job, there's some overlap in our presentations, but we're covering kind of a little bit different angles. But on the plus side, I have not done nearly as much work as Giacomo, so I'm not gonna have as long of a presentation because he's been working really hard.
Giacomo just doesn't put colorful pictures like his predecessor did, which took up too much space anyway.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in and my presentation is going to follow the format of my report. I'm going to start by talking about Lions Wayside and DeLucchi Parks. And I'll say DeLucchi. Some people say DeLucci. I don't still, after 8 years, know which one is correct, but I'm going to go with DeLucchi. This has been a project we've been working on way before my time. We adopted a master plan in 2014 that didn't fly with the regulatory agency. So we were looking to update a master plan in 2022. You've seen this project many times. And then when we went to propose the updated master plan to the city council, we had a slight change in direction at that time. And that change in direction was to focus on improving the park for the budget that we have available to us, which is about $1.9 million. The proposed concept plan was probably going to cost in the range of $10 to $12 million. So we're pivoting to do what we could for this like very, very beloved park, to improve the park, replace the bandstand, and do other park improvements to upgrade it and do improvements to reflect the input we received during the public outreach process. So that occurred on February 7th. And so just recently, we're starting to look at bandstand locations and options, and you're going to see us pretty soon coming to the Parks and Rec Commission, most likely in September with a couple concepts. The transportation corridor parking lot. I call it the transportation corridor, but engineering calls it the parking lot because I think it's more than just a parking lot. But there's not much to report on this. In October of 2022, phase 1 and 2 were substantially complete. So you would think that we would actually be complete with the project by July of 2023. But there are a number of pending construction items that we're still trying to work with the contractor on. Now, this is a project that I'm really excited to talk about, which is the Ken Mercer Skate Park. You've seen the skate park. We presented the concept plan to you like couple years, maybe a couple years ago by now. And at that time, we were looking at 8.5 million or so in construction costs. And we don't have the budget for that. So when we went to city council back a while ago, city council said, hey, you need to value engineer the project. And so we did, and that's what we're doing right now. And on March 15th, 2023, we received our 50% complete construction documents. And then on June 4th of this year, council approved a total of 6.4 million in budget. So that's going to be great. We think we could build a great skate park for, it's going to probably be about 5 million is going to be the low bid. And then there's going to be contingency and some bid alternates. Along the same lines, talking about Ken Mercer again, we're working on the cricket field. Ramesh, you should be excited to know that City Council is awarding the contract on, and Steve too, on the 18th. So right around the corner, it's pretty exciting. So it's a project like the skate park we've been working on for a long time, and even longer than the skate park. And we received 50% complete construction documents on January 20th of this year. In May, we advertised the project for bid. On June 6th, City Council approved an additional $50,000 for the project because based off the cost estimate that the designer had provided, we thought it might be a little bit more than what we had budgeted, which was we had 500,000. And so City Council approved up to $550,000. On June 14th, we had the bid opening. And we were excited to see that the bids that we got, the low bid was less than the engineer's estimate. So the engineer's estimate was $438,000. We got 6 bids. The low bid was for $414,430, so $24,000 less than our engineer's estimate. And so we are moving forward with that project. That project, we're doing it in conjunction with when we're going to close the field. So we're waiting till end of August, early September, once kind of the big tournaments have completed, and we're coming in there. It's going to be about a month and a half of construction, and then there's going to be a 3-month resting period while all the other fields are closed. So the turf cut is a growing period for the turf. So pickleball and court resurfacing, although we did not get a cricket field at Muirwood, we did get pickleball at Muirwood. So on November 3rd of this past year, we completed construction. This picture that you have in front of you, this is the ribbon cutting ceremony, which happened on December 14th. And City Council accepted the project on February 21st of 2023. And then like Giacomo kind of already showed you, we did end up talking to the pickleball players, and we added some components, the aluminum benches that Giacomo had already showed you on the paddle rack. This is a project that has taken a lot of my time. You know, you think building a trail that is essentially already built would be easy and inexpensive. Not the case. November 2022 of this past year, we did I actually thought that this trail, the big obstacle was going to be getting this trail easement from the Golden Eagle Homeowners Association, but they were very pleased and easy to work with, and they provide us a public trail easement through their property and about half the mountain bike trails through their property. And we got that in November. In December, we had a bid opening for the trail construction. On May 15th, we began construction, and the reason there was a pretty long delay in that is because we had to wait because of all the environmental regulations associated with the project. We had to wait till after May began. So we started on May 15th, And we were substantially complete on June 29th. So there's still some work that we're doing, and pretty much the environmental mitigation work. There's still a little bit of that and a few wrap-up items, but the trail is open for use right now. And this picture that you see right now, which is one of the best views from the ridge that you could imagine. We cut this log. We actually used pretty much all existing material out there. So we use existing rocks and logs and whatever. And we work with the biologists, and we put in all these jumps and did all this cool stuff. But we put this we had this log and we cut it and we made a little bench of it for this overlook area. Giacomo already talked about the Lund Ranch Trail, and this is I realized I didn't update my text, so my apologies. But forget the text on this slide, but the trail that you see on this picture is going to be a hiking trail, and it is going to go through that 117 acres of open space, and it's going to connect with the Bonnie Ranch open space. And I only included the slide because I thought it was a great picture and nobody's really been out there. So I just kind of wanted to show people what that trail is going to look like once it'll be cut in this area where you could kind of see a bench. Giacomo already talked about the Burnell Community Farm once again. So I'm just gonna touch on a couple of things here, which was that on May 22nd, we actually had a kind of not a ribbon cutting ceremony, but just like a celebration of the fact that we're doing the project. And we had city council there and the master gardeners, and there's some speeches and whatnot. And as Giacomo talked about, there is a compost hub there right now. So every Friday we dump a load of compost. And so if you're a resident in Pleasanton and you want some free compost, that's where you're going to get it. And once again, a repeat item here, Val Vista playground renovation. Back in November, we did an online survey. We talked to you in December and showed you the playground options and the input. You made a recommendation. City Council awarded the contract on January 7th based off of your recommendation. And on June 5th, construction began, and we are still under construction. There's been a few delays because of some missing playground components, but we were hoping to open it within the next few weeks here. So before I open this up to comments and questions, there's a couple other things I didn't include here that I just wanted to mention. And Giacomo talked about how important our urban forest is to the city. And I wanted to mention that we just started work on our urban forest master plan. So you're going to be the first commission that we're going to get some input on the urban forest master plan. And that's going to be forthcoming pretty soon too, within the next couple of months here. And we're pretty excited about it. Giacomo and I have been working to try and get the city to adopt the urban forest master plan for as long as I've been here anyways. And so we're moving forward with that. I'll talk a little bit about some of the other storm damage that Giacomo didn't cover. I assist the Library and Recreation Department on maintaining the Pioneer Cemetery. And we had actually 6 major blue gum eucalyptus trees fail there. And they fell on the storage area where all the equipment is, and it did some pretty serious damage, but we've got that all taken care of now, except we still need to remove those stumps. But yeah, and then the last thing I'll just report is that we got a new intern for landscape architecture. So you'll probably see him at the public outreach events we do, and then probably at one of these meetings coming up. And with that, I think I'm missing something, but I'll open it up to any questions or comments.
Commissioner Rittmiller?
I have no questions at this time.
Commissioner Burbridge? No questions. Commissioner Vickers?
Matt, a great report, and I'm looking forward to that urban forest master plan. Thank you.
Great.
And Commissioner Maldi?
No, thank you. As always, great job.
Keep it alive. Keep that streak going, Chuck. No questions or comments.
It is a question. As far as I've always been curious about this, the one-way mountain bike. Is this such a grade that it won't be appealing to people to get a nice climb for an uphill climb?
So It will not be appealing to anybody to go uphill. It is super steep.
I figured it was.
It is 0.7 miles and it's about, I think we figured out it's a 618-foot elevation drop in 0.7 miles. So it averages like somewhere between 15 to 20% slope.
That's a
And you
big
are
slope.
flying
Yeah.
down here. When I get like, people were riding on the bike trail when we were still working on it and we're like, can't you see it's like, it's closed. There's like a sign right there. It's like, it clearly says there's construction trucks up there. Why are you riding here? And one of our guys actually got hit by one of the mountain bikers who like, anyways. But you do not want to go up that trail. Even the e-bike, it's not an appealing thing. Yeah, you do not want to walk. You do not want to walk up that trail either. So we actually created some signage, which I didn't really talk about, but there's gonna, like, basically it connects with the overall trail system. And if you go up the upway, it's a 3.1 mile loop. So it's 2.4 miles to go uphill and get to the top of that downhill section and then 0.7 miles down.
I saw your temporary signage on a hike on the top of, yeah. Thanks, Matt, for your very detailed and nice report.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to commission reports, and that would include the committee meetings that some of us attended during the month or last couple of months. First on the list would be the Bikes, Pedestrian and Trails Committee.
Okay, our last meeting on June 26th, the big takeaway there was we're looking into, as a city, getting a street sweeper that would be used for the bicycle lanes. As you probably all know, that we're moving aggressively into a much more bicycle friendly city. And we have these on West Las Positas Boulevard right now. If you drive that, you'll see a lot of the green barriers. I can't remember what we call those things, but they're set up there, and then other parts of the city as well. And so it's a real challenge for our existing street sweeper, because they cannot go into that area. And our existing contract allows for the maintenance workers to actually use some kind of a leaf blowing apparatus. So the city's looking into the option of getting a smaller unit, and we're looking at surrounding communities as well and seeing what they're using, seeing if there's possibly a way to share equipment, because it's not something that's going to be used all the time. But we're looking at all means to find something that's economical to solve that issue that's going to become much more apparent as more people start riding. And anybody that does ride in those corridors knows that just the grit and just all the waste products on the road do find their way to the side of the road, and it's hard for bikers. And that's pretty much it that I have for that report.
Great, thanks, Mike. Community character.
So the only main topic that I would like to kind of share here is there is a barbecue that will be annual barbecue that will be hosted in August. And I forgot the date, but I will share, and I would like to invite everybody here along the city staff. So there will be annual barbecue that is kind of fundraiser that happens every year. That's all from my side.
Great, thank you. Heritage Tree Review Board. Who's on that again?
I think it's Lisa Brown,
Okay.
Heritage Tree
It's
Board.
actually I am, but I think Kira sat in on the last meeting. I don't think we've had. one
Mike, we
since then.
can't hear you.
Can't
Can
hear
you
you, Mike.
speak up?
Yeah, I don't think there's been a meeting since the last session that Kira sat in for me on. So we have not had a heritage tree, and I'm the commissioner on that committee.
I reported that the last meeting.
Right. So there has not been a meeting since then.
And Public Art Selection Subcommittee. I know that doesn't meet very often. I forget who's on that. Do we have anybody on it? Was that Joni?
That one is the Lisa Brown one. Sorry.
okay.
Kira's on Heritage Tree
Okay.
and Lisa's on.
Sports Council, we just had a meeting last night, actually. It was actually a pretty detailed meeting. We had a report by Giacomo on the Val Vista Under Drains project, which is on schedule to be completed in the fall. They'll start beginning boring under the field, so it shouldn't be interrupting the sports teams using those fields. We received, as we did tonight, a report on the cricket pitch construction. And one thing that was noted that will when the cricket field is operable, we'll have to figure out the allocation of field 6 and cricket playing and how they allocate their time on that field. There was a discussion about the field lighting. I wasn't aware, and I became educated that we do charge each of the teams and leagues for the lighting that they use for their sports. And they're changing the way that they invoice those leagues like Ballistic and Rage, where they used to have to do it via check and it was very old school. Now they're going to be able to do it very simply online, which is going to be a much easier way for them to make payment on those invoices. The Stanford Stadium recognition, there's going to be an event at some point with the Stanford high levels and city council and the community to announce the change of with the Bernal Community Park now being part of the Stanford Healthcare, and also invited will be the other sponsors that for the smaller fields. The date has not been set on that. They're trying to figure out the schedules between City Council and Stanford and their people to come up with that date. They do hope that to be a large community event. They like to see a good turnout for that from the entire community. So they're going to do some things to make that attractive for everybody to show up. And then we talked about the sports park storage and snack shack, it's an ongoing issue and project. There's been an uptick on the theft of those shacks. There's been not much of an understanding of who has keys. And there's going to be a special interest on getting all that better managed because there's going to be 9 new AEDs that were just purchased and 5 are going to be allocated to Parks and Rec. And we're going to want to make sure, obviously, those are well protected. We had discussion about the 2023 tournament schedules, but those were mostly understood. So we didn't really go into much detail on that. And then we talked about the field allocation and that we basically used, I guess, the period, if I'm not mistaken, between August and November for field allocations. And we're looking to update field allocation process, which is a 1998 policy, as far as what we use for our co-sponsored teams. And so I guess staff is always getting questions about how does a league or how does a new sport become co-sponsored. And so we're looking to update that 1998 policy. And one of the big changes is going to be that's been proposed is right now it states that a co-sponsored team has to be 75% Pleasanton residents. They're looking with the new document to be lower that to 65 residents. And there's reasons for those changes, but there doesn't seem to be much concern among the teams with that change. They seem most of them welcome that potential change. And that's about it. And I should just note that we are the only city, I think Heidi's mentioned this before, that doesn't charge for the use of our fields in a lot of our recreation programs. So I think the city going forward is going to be looking for ways, as Heidi's mentioned to us, to start charging for some of our recreation programs and time of field allocation. That being said, do we have any other brief reports on meetings, conferences, or seminars attended by the commission members?
Actually, I have a question to piggyback off what you just mentioned. So are we going to start charging for use, or what
But we're going to bring you the co-sponsor resolution here to this body to discuss. And you have all already recommended to council to approve a recreation fee schedule, and staff will probably work on implementing that. But we're going to bring you the co-sponsor resolution update first and get that all sorted out and get a more structured process that people can, easily figure out how to be a co-sponsored group. And then, so we'll be bringing items back to you related to co-sponsorship.
Okay.
Great. Any other matters initiated by the commission? Any topic you'd like to discuss or bring up?
Chuck, I have one thing. Chuck,
On Steve, go ahead.
Chuck, right here. Okay, Chuck, I just want to thank you for chairing tonight since I'm out of town. I appreciate that. You did a great job.
Mike, enjoy the rest of your time on your vacation.
Thank you.
Hey, so I kind of asked a question earlier. So When do you think we're gonna get some type of an update on Century House?
That's a great question to which I can't answer, or it's going to take a hiring process, which may take several months before we get someone, and then they'll need to get onboarded. And that process will need to start. So I would think it's a minimum of 6 months before we get a Century House update.
Okay, yeah, because prior, Joni was really pushing the Century House, and she's no longer on this committee, but I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of all of her diligent work towards moving that thing forward.
Yeah, so it is in the capital improvement project budget. Council has adopted funding for it. It is in our project list. We just need to wait for staffing to manage that project.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
For future agenda items, Heidi, you've listed skate park. I think you've also mentioned that we have some other potential.
So under matters initiated, just jump back if
Yeah.
we could. This is where you all would vote to put items on the agenda. So if someone had something they wanted to add to the agenda, whether it was committee selections, I know that has come up a few times, or anything else. What we have coming to you soonish is the co-sponsor policy update, the urban forest master plan, skate park, Las Positas Boulevard reconstruction, Lions Wayside, and Pleasanton Pioneer Cemetery fee structure. So those are our upcoming items that we're aware of, but if they're, if you wanted to add committee selections or anything like that, this would be the time.
Otherwise, we would have committee sections could come up in December, January, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a point. Steve, did you want to bring that up for next meeting, the sports
No,
council
you know what?
situation?
No, I think we should just carry on with what we have assigned
Okay.
this year.
Okay, very good.
I think that makes sense. Thanks for asking though.
Hearing no other items, I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.